Hello YouTube. Tamriel has known many rulers over the course of its history, from small-scale rulers to emperors of empires, and from strong rulers to extremely weak rulers. Now, today we're talking about one of Tamriel's historical emperors, specifically the 4th emperor of the Riemann Empire, Brazollus Dor, who I would like to call Tamriel's party emperor, since he really did not care much about ruling and only really seemed to care about 3 things: wine, women and parties. Now, with the Elder Scrolls Online's newest expansion, Gold Road, adding a lot of details about his life, I figured that today would be the moment to talk about his story. So, let's roll the intro, and let's talk about Tamriel's most decadent and most disinterested ruler. So, the Riemann Empire, or the Second Cyrodiilic Empire. At its height it spanned across almost all of Tamriel and would be the biggest empire Tamriel had ever seen until Tiber Septim would conquer the entire continent at the end of the Second Era for the Septim Empire. Now, the Riemann Empire's history can be split into 2 distinct chapters. First, the reign of the 5 Riemann Emperors, and then, after the assassination of the final Riemann Emperor and all his heirs, the rule of the Ekaviri potentates, who were once advisors to the emperors. But once there were no legitimate heirs left, they took full control of the empire at the start of the Second Era. Now, it's important to know that each of the Riemann emperors had a trusted Ekaviri advisor potentate, ever since the invading forces of Ekavir, who were looking for a dragonborn on Tamriel during the First Era, had encountered Riemann Cyrodiil, who would later become the first of the Riemann emperors, and crucially, he was a dragonborn. Because when they heard his voice, they joined his forces instead of continuing their military campaign on Tamriel, as the Ekaviri had now found their dragonborn. From that moment on, each Riemann emperor would have an Ekaviri advisor, and so did the emperor that we're talking about today, Brazollus Dor, who ruled the Riemann Empire for 34 years, serving as its 4th emperor after the death of his father, Emperor Riemann II. And by the way, in case you hadn't noticed, the image that I'm using for Brazollus Dor is not Brazollus Dor, as we don't know what he looks like, so I just used an image of Emperor Uriel VII with a party hat and sunglasses, because that really fits, as you'll see. Deal with it. Now, the way he ascended to the throne was quite curious, because Emperor Brazollus Dor was never supposed to be an emperor. In fact, he was the illegitimate son of Emperor Riemann II and a common-born maid named Irina Dor, who the former emperor slept with while staying in the city of Skingrad. Now, for their son, Brazollus, there wasn't really all that much hope at his birth of ever for him to reach the throne. However, his fate was a lot better than many of the other bastard sons across Tamriel, as Emperor Riemann II was quite fond of his mother. Even though politically he could never be with her, he at least made sure that she was set up in a comfortable mansion with ample servants, and made sure that their son would get a proper education and could also live at the mansion. And as such, Brazollus Dor grew up into a smart and handsome young man, reportedly resembling his father greatly in all aspects, except for one. Because Brazollus Dor was extremely unambitious and quite lazy, growing up mostly just partying, tending to his vineyard and hunting with his friends. And this would have been his life, were it not that Emperor Riemann II died while trying to conquer Morrowind, leaving no other heirs. So, since Brazollus Dor was a dragonborn, he was called up for the throne. Since he was officially a bastard, he did keep his mother's name Dor in the histories. Instead of being renamed to Brazollus Riemann, he was still called Brazollus Dor. And it's said that he took on the responsibilities of the throne with a heavy heart. And in the first few years of his reign, he tried to at least pretend like he cared about ruling, probably more out of a sense of obligation than anything else, as he tried to continue his father's conquest of Morrowind, in which he did reportedly fought quite valiantly, and he tried to be in the White Gold Tower to do administrative work. But especially these administrative duties really didn't interest him, nor was he very suited to deal with them, so he left most of his duties to his Ekaviri potentate advisor, Sidri Ashak. While the emperor himself would often be gone long from court, returning only sparingly, Sidri Ashak basically ran the empire until the emperor returned, and that is until he had a large luxurious villa built for himself in the Cyrodiilic countryside that he called Villa Doria. At that point, Emperor Brazollus Dor was straight up never in the court anymore and rather concerned himself with the things he liked doing, and with that I mean the aforementioned eating, drinking, playing games, hunting and debauched pleasures of the flesh with women, often in group settings, in a word that I can't say due to demonetization. You know which word I mean. And while his Akaviri potentate in the background just quietly ran the empire from the Imperial city, this is what the Emperor did. Now, Emperor Brazollus Door kind of reminds me of the Roman Emperor Tiberius, who also was away for long stretches from Rome, instead being on his island of Capri, leaving a confidant in Rome to assume many of his duties, although I don't remember him being as disinterested in ruling as Brazollus Door, but hey, I'm not a Rome expert, so I may have missed that part in the histories. Now, while at his villa, Brazollus Door had the greatest of times. He wooed many a woman, held extravagant feasts of more than 40 dishes for every attendee. He slept with Argonian courtesans, apparently ate a lot of beaver tails. He ruined political relations with elsewhere by culturally offending a Khajiit diplomat. He played jokes with his guests, made fun of his brother-in-law for losing his balls, and slept with the wife of one of his ministers. You know, emperor stuff. Now, Brazollus Door's story actually ends quite abruptly here, as one day he simply died unexpectedly in his villa. He'd been aging, but he had still been very healthy, which had led some historians to believe that the Emperor was assassinated internally by those who felt like the Akaviri potentate was getting a little bit too much power, and that faction perhaps wanted his son, who was now almost of age, on the throne instead, as he was far more ambitious than his father had ever been. Now, despite all of Brazollus' flaws, most peasants from his time actually look back upon his reign with fondness, because under his rule, kind of just nothing happened. The empire was prosperous and no catastrophic things were attempted, like ill-found invasions or trade wars or something like that, which crashed the economy. The empire was just peaceful. It was a good time for the average citizen of the empire. So, you know, despite his flaws, I don't think Brazollus Door was all that bad of a ruler. I mean, yeah, he kind of abused his own power for personal gains and did nothing for the empire, but considering all the histories tell us that he was quite incompetent, and the fact that he needed to be emperor due to the dragon blood he possessed and didn't really have a choice himself anyway, him then recognizing, hey, I don't want to rule, I'm bad at it, I'm going to my villa, and you, more capable potentate, you rule the empire without doing anything crazy. That worked out quite well for most people on Tamriel, and it's not like he just left any random guy in charge, as his potentate, Sidri Ashak, is remembered by many vassals of the time as being a very capable ruler and someone of integrity. The potentate's memoirs are still even studied by rulers hundreds of years later, so I mean, leaving him in charge really wasn't a bad decision. And that is the story of Emperor Brazollus Door, and I sincerely hope that you enjoyed this video, and that I managed to teach you something new about the Elder Scrolls lore today. And if I did, why not subscribe to the channel and return for the next lore video, probably in a few days, that would really help me out. Now, thanks to Bethesda Netherlands for making this video possible by giving me a code for the Elder Scrolls Online Gold Road expansion, which is why I can delve into all of the new lore. Thanks very much for that. Now, all that remains for me to be done is to thank my top Patreon subscribers, Mr. Bernardo Binda, His Soul, Gabriel Binda, Athena Yodis, Doji, Fenrir, King Chris, Pavel T, Pentam Gwar, Volkir of Argonia, Leo Worley, and Sword of Bushido. They and all the others on screen keep this channel alive, and for that I'm eternally grateful. That said, I will see all of you in the next Elder Scrolls lore video. Bye bye.